大家中午好。很快啊，这个 Term Three 马上就过完了啊。这一周已经是 Term Three 最后一周了。有很多家长呢问我呢，说这个孩子假期的时候需要给孩子再进行一些额外的一些练习啊，或者什么的。有很多这样的问题。当然了，也有很多孩子都已经迫不及待的去等待自己要到来的这个假期了哈。那么我呢，在这儿呢，想跟大家说，就是我觉得假期不需要再做些什么额外的题目，但是呢，有一点，我觉得如果有时间的话，当然了，保证孩子的休息是第一位的哈，毕竟孩子也辛苦了一个学期了。那么如果有时间的话，我觉得重点还是要去review 自己在这个学期所做的题目。我们的不同的年级呢，基本上这个学期最少也要有20个作业，最多的要30个作业。那么现在在手上，每个作业呢，你家长都会收到一份错误的题目的一个集合。那么我觉得这里面做错的题，那么需要孩子们再把它看一看，结合我们课上讲的内容，把这个题目进行一次重新的 review。那么一定要搞清楚，那么这个题目到底是为什么错了？那么它这道题目是结合的是我们课上的讲的哪一些点来进行来解决这个问题的？那么有很多那个家长们说，老师我不是很清楚怎么来让孩子来带着孩子来复习哈，或者是孩子怎么样这种 review 才是过关的。那么我就想呢，结合这个一些孩子问我一些问题，我想跟大家做一个这样的一个假期的一个系列。那么通过不同的这种题型呢，我给孩子们做一个 example，that is how we review each of the question。OK，如果家长们想帮助孩子的话，也可以把这个视频看一看。如果说孩子们不是特别清楚的话，也可以 review the each question with me together, and then I'll give you the example to show you how you review your own questions，好吗？那我们现在就开始。OK，我给它起了一个名字叫 Holiday Review Theory，something that's the kids might be hate of，right？那个 holiday I need to take a break。Okay, so the first one we're still talking about is the argument question, right? So argument is very important section, the type of the question in the critical thinking session. And how do we review the argument question? Today we're going to using one example to showing to each of the parents of the student. That is how can we review of the argument question. So this is the question that we are doing in the final term test in the selective, which is year 5 student. So just look at this question. Some student might say, oh, Rex, I get the answers already. I know the answer is not A, the answer is B, or the answer is C. I get the answers. I understand. Okay, so more importantly here, we are not only focusing, when we review the question, we are not only focusing on what this question, what the answer should be. What we are focusing on is why, how do we get the answers? How can we get the answers, right? So for this question, what are we looking at is, you can be thinking about is, from the argument session, what we learned from the arguments. What's the first thing you need to do when you're facing an argument question? That's very important that we need to ask ourselves first, right? So if you kind of remember, go back to the notes, right? Go back to the notes and have a look. And what do we discuss this here? So for every argument question, if you look at the notes, you understand. So for the argument question, first thing we need to do is we need to find out the conclusion and the premises. Right? That's always job number one we need to do. So what is conclusion? What is premises? How do I know which one is conclusion, which one is premises? That is just something we discussed in the classes always the first time, right? So conclusion is something the arguer want to convince us to believe. That's something. It's called a conclusion. So if we look at this question, Matt and Yash, they play chess together. They play chess together every day at lunch. They are same skill level, so they play roughly like equal, right? When they played each other, they won around half of the game. They play every time. Yeah, because they are on the same level. So far, it's nothing we can clearly to see. This is arguer want to convince us to believe, right? So when we keep reading, we'll find, okay, the conclusion. I can't remember how many games Matt and Yash played last week, but I know Matt win 5. So this is a very strong indicator to telling us they must play about 10 games. So this is the conclusion, which is Mr. Stead want to convince us believe that they must then play the 10 games. So we found a conclusion, but just being give us the conclusion is won't be convince us to believe something, right? If I just give you the conclusion to say, okay, they must play 10 games, you instinctually we're going to ask you is why? Why you convinced to believe that they're going to be play 10 games? So next one we need is the premises. Premise, the function of the premises is supporting, right? It's supporting what the conclusion is. Why do you think they play 10 games? It's because first one, the premises is Matt win 5. Matt win 5. The second premises is because roughly they win half of the games. So since Matt win 5, we can say, okay, Matt must be lose 5. Then that's why they play the total 10 games together. Excuse me. So we find the conclusion, we find the premises. So this argument, what they want to convince us believe is they played 10 games because Matt win 5, because they are in the same level. So roughly they only win half of them. So if Matt win 5, which means Matt must lose 5, then so they roughly played about 10 games. Okay, that's the whole argument. Done. Second one. Yeah, we talking about the strength and a weakening, right? So this question, since they're asking us the mistake, so we can clearly know that mistake is going to be weakening the argument. Instead, look at the options first. Let's quickly think about weakening argument. How many different strategies we discuss in the classes about weakening the argument? We learn 4, right? We learn W1, W2, W3, W4, right? That's very proudly because that's our secret code. Only student and me, we know that, right? Yeah. Okay, what is W1? What is W2? What is W3? And what's W4? What's that all standing for, right? That's something you can review from your class notes before you understand what for this question. Okay, so guys, you might understand now through this question, we are not only to solve this question, but we want to review what we have learned about arguments, about a weakening argument, everything we learned about it through this question, right? So W1, we all know that when we want to weakening the argument, we can weakening the premises straight away, right? Which means if I can weaken your premises, then definitely your whole conclusion will be weakened. Yeah. The second one is, somebody might think about it with me, we offer the counter explanation. Right? We offer the counter explanation, which is, even I admit what you said about the premises is right, but the same premises might get the totally opposite conclusion, right? I explain them in a different way, right? I explain in a different way. The examples I give in the class is always like to say $30 for the primary school every year, the tuition fee. Is that high enough or not? Yeah, $30,000. That is something won't change. As these premises, using the premises, somebody might get a conclusion to say it's more expensive. It's very expensive, right? So you get this conclusion probably because you're based on as parents or students. But think about it. If you are the principal, you are the teachers in the primary school, still facing $10,000 as the premises, what the conclusion you might get is it's not expensive. It's cheap. We still should charge them more because we have the better facility, something like that, right? So see, only $30,000. This is the premises, it's never changed, but we can get to the totally opposite conclusion if you look at this premises by different point of view, right? That's the second way we weakening the the argument, right? We also talking about another way. Yes, yeah, the errors in reasoning, right? That is we mentioned in the classes is the fallacy, right? Another way we can do is we find the weak assumption, right? That is the 4 different ways we are discussed in the classes. Now, let's look at this question. So the conclusion by saying yes, they must be play 10. Why they play 10? Because they get is match, win 5. And also because they are on the same level, they roughly win half of it. So totally we get a conclusion to say they must be play 10. Right? So here, actually there is a assumption, which is this argument, the arguer didn't say it. That's what assumption is, right? They didn't say, but we can feel it. That's called assumption. So the assumption here is because they are on the same level, which means they each won around half of the game. Yeah? If this is around about half of the game, the assumption here is this half of the game will apply to any number of the games they play. Right? They will play any numbers of games they play. If they play 5, then it's 10. If they play 6, it's 12. If they play 1, then that is 2. So what they assumed is this half rule gonna apply to all the numbers of the chassis they played. But my question is it necessary to be true? Even they win around half of the matches they play, is that means they always to be true, no matter how many games they play. They always be true to say, okay, if you win one, then you must be lose another one. Is that true? It's not, right? Yeah. So for this question, actually, the point we weaken this argument is we find the weaknesses in the assumption. Okay, so basically we are using this way to challenge this argument. This argument, the arguer wrongly assumed that no matter how many games you play, this half rule is always applied. But we know that is not necessarily to be true, right? Sometimes you could be win 2 games in a row. Sometimes you could be in 3 games in a row. Even generally speaking, you still only win half of them. Yeah. So this probability, this chance rule cannot apply to any number of the games, right? That's basically just similar like we told the coins. We all know that the chance we get the coin, we get the head will be 1/2. But is that means every time when you toll twice, you definitely will get one is the head, another one is the tail? No, we can't say that, right? Okay, that is how we challenge this question. Now, if we understand this way, when we look at A, B, C, D for options, which one might possibly to pointing out this half percentage rule, 50% rule, half rule, might not apply to any of numbers of the matches they play. Let's read A. Either Matt or Yash might play unusually well last week. So I think A is already the best good answer. But I'm sorry, we should not choose it now. I'm sorry, this is my bad. Yeah, I keep telling you guys, we haven't read all the options. But A seems like it's very good, right? So A telling us, yeah, one person play unusually well. So that means even they play Matt win 5 games. Does not mean that's another 5 games he must be lose, right? If Matt play very well, they might only play 5 games and Matt win all of them. If Yash play well, maybe Matt won 5, but Matt might be lose another 10, 20, or 25 because the match playing very well. So A is very good at weakening the conclusion to say they must play 10 games. We can't say that if one of them playing unusually well, right? But let's look at BCD. The players has each won half a round, not exactly half of their game. Okay, somebody might say, Rex, that's also true. This is not exactly. Yes. So if it's not exactly, means you cannot say they have exactly 10. But can you read the conclusion again? Is that Mr. Steady say they play exactly 10 games? No, he said yes, around 10 games, about 10 games. So Mr. Steady never treat, they say, oh, they must play exactly 10 games. They just say roughly around 10 games. What we want to weakening is, it's not even roughly 10 games. It could be much more or less, right? So B, even they pointing out this some of the points, but B is not a very good awakening because Mr. Steady never say they play exactly 10 games, right? That's why we can't choose B. See, Matt and Yash may have a lot of the homeworks last week. Yeah, so what? So that's why it's definitely irrelevant. Yeah, D. It doesn't matter who wins because the important thing is that they both have fun, right? Okay, good. That's also something irrelevant because they never have any impact on the conclusion. Do they play roughly 10 games or not? So here, after we read A, B, C, D, we find A is the best answer. They are using W4 to challenge the wrong assumption. Okay, that is how we review each question. Nice. That's the example I giving to you to how to review each one of the question. And if you know how to do it, can you check all the from your 30 homework, how many argument or question you made a mistake? Can you use the same strategy I'm doing here to review your question? If you get any question you want to ask, welcome always. You can send that question to me. OK，今天我们就到这里，这就是我们给孩子们总结的，我们怎么样通过一道题目来把我们课堂上学到的知识再进行一次梳理啊。这个的话，不管是3年级的孩子、4年级孩子、5年级的孩子，我相信大家用的方法都是一样的，好吧？今天我就跟大家分享到这里，谢谢大家，拜拜。